cupboards. There's tools in there. It's not for kitties. What's the matter? What are you looking for? Hi, everybody. We're having a kitty moment here. Bjorn's having a little temper tantrum and crying, and I don't know what his problem is yet. So, you know, babies come first, right? Anyway, good morning and welcome back to the Kristin Omdahl Show. This is episode 1135 and we are live in Southwest Florida in my studio. I thought about going outside this morning, but it was way too cold. It was like 54 degrees and yeah, too cold for me. So we'll try that. You know it's going to heat up eventually here. It's usually much warmer than this, so I will try to get down to that marina close by and see if we can get some nature stuff going. I did get all the ends woven in on some projects last night, so I was going to also go down there to do a photo shoot today, but those white jeans that I bought are too tight and don't fit. So time for plan B, but that's what life is all about, right? We have plans and we have to figure it, we have to anticipate things not going the way we want and rolling with it and coming up with a plan B. Anyway, it's Tuesday, Giving Tuesday. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Today's the day that we dedicate the show to Shawls for Sharing and talk about the dedicated shawl for the quarter, which this quarter is the Tranquil Tiles crochet shawl pattern. This one here. But before we get started, let's check in and see who is here with us live. We have Betty, Mary Anna, Thea, Judy, Angela, Steffi, Sharon, Edna, Joe, Angela, Leona, Judy. I think I'm caught up. Anyway, if you're, hi Gail, if you're joining me live, please say hello. Let me know if you're crafting today. Let me know if you have any questions about anything that I've been promoting lately. I've been promoting a lot of fun stuff lately. A lot of stuff going on. If you are one of my Patreon subscribers and you are level 2 and higher, tomorrow is our monthly behind the scenes live stream over there, and I will be making a personal announcement, something about unrelated to the craft side of my life, but something really special and exciting to me that I'm not ready to share with the whole world yet. I've been through the ringer with social media in the last 12 months, and I just can't let the negative people rain on my parade yet. So I feel much safer sharing there. So if you are level 2 and higher, I will be sharing a really exciting announcement. I know you're going to be excited about it too. I'll be sharing that tomorrow there and talking about some restructuring that I'm thinking about doing at Patreon, and actually have a lot of restructuring going on my website and everywhere right now. If you haven't noticed, I'm having a gigantic book sale on my website right now, and it is the last time that I'm going to be selling the books direct to consumer. Going forward, I will only be selling my books on Amazon. It is just, you know, I've spent almost a year living in a small space in the RV now, and there are some things that make sense here. The design side of my business makes a lot of sense here. Housing inventory makes absolutely no sense here. It's just way too hard for me. And yeah, so if you would like autographed copies of my books that are, anytime a new book comes out, I'll do a small batch and autograph them, but going forward, books are going to be sold only on Amazon going forward, the physical paperback books. So I'm having a bulk discount sale on my website right now where you can get up to 40% off, and you can see all of that if you go to the books. And seriously, help me out. I would really like them to get into good homes. Even if you want to stock up on gifts for other people, you can write notes in there and tell me if you want me to autograph it to somebody else. Honestly, at 40% off, if you own a store or own a shop and you want me to just autograph it without personalizing it, like leaving the inscription but not saying to, you can sell autographed copies of my books in your Etsy shop or in your physical shop or in your craft fair or wherever you sell things. You know, at 40% off, you can still make decent profit doing that as well. So maybe that's something you'd be interested in, or buying them for friends. I know some people have taken advantage of the sale so far and literally had me sign all of them to somebody else and ship them to a third party as a special gift. So, you know, or maybe you haven't gotten all of my books before. Maybe you never bought my books. I don't know. It's a great discount. Like I said, it's a bulk discount. There's tiers of it, and you can see that on my website, and it's up to 40% off when you buy the full bulk discount. But it's a great savings. 40% off is a lot. And if you can do me the favor of helping me downsize here, that would be greatly appreciated. Then I'd have more room to organize other stuff like yarn. You know, yarn companies are starting to send me yarn to design for them now, and I'm running out of space. So, what's the matter, sweetheart? Come on up here. Hi, Donna and Wendy and Val. Who else did I miss? Hi, Gail. If I missed anybody, hello and welcome. So happy you could be here. After last week's episode, we were talking about so many different ways to use the square and triangle motif in the Tranquil Tiles pattern. And, well, come on, sugar. Well, come on. Can you hear him crying at my feet? What you want, sweet pea? Where you want to go? Come on up here. Come say hi to everybody. I've been singing to him this morning, and he loves it when I sing to him. Don't you, baby? Anyway, what were we talking about? Oh, that's right. We were talking about last week, and if you didn't watch last week's Tuesday episode, I highly recommend going back and watching it, because I took a super deep dive into the different shapes of two-dimensional fabric you can make when you combine a square and the triangle counterpart of any motif, and specifically where we're talking about how to use that concept on your with the Tranquil Tiles motif. Oh, Judy can't tell if it's Bjorn or her cat crying right now. That's cute. Hi, baby. You gonna come say hi? He goes, you can scratch me. Okay, I will scratch you. So after that episode, I was, well, come here. No, you're not going in the upper cabinets. No. No, I don't like you going up there. There are pins up there. There are tools up there. There are scissors up there. There are things that are just not meant for kitties. Okay? So you can't go up there. He wants me to open the cabinets up there and let him roam around. I let him do that in my bedroom because it's just like pajamas and sweats and extra linens up there. But he thinks that that means he can go in this one too, and he can't go in this one. And so sometimes he gets mad. Isn't that funny? That's Bjorn mad. Anyway, so I was so excited about talking about the motifs that I thought I really would love to put a compilation together of motifs with their triangle half motif counterparts and a whole bunch of schematics, and do a deep dive class so that you could take all of that and go just explore unlimited possibilities with it. So I've been writing this handout, I guess, so to speak, or it's turning into like a book, but I don't want it to be a book. I really want this to be a class. But, you know, once you open up the can of worms, what happens? You know, you see this, or you go down the rabbit hole. It's like, oh, this is good. Oh, this is good to add. Oh, this is good to add. Well, I'm like up to 50 pages now, and it's too much. And now I'm thinking, well, should I add circle motifs and half circles? Should I add hexagons for doing other types of shaping? Should I consider three-dimensional shaping, like when I do square motifs for a hat and do a hexagon shape for the crown to tie all that together? And I'm like, it's got to be 2 classes. Because I don't want to intimidate beginners with all of that advanced stuff yet. And I want to show hexagons with half hexagons and circles with half circles and three-dimensional shaping, and maybe even go into some seamless motif joining as you go without cutting yarn. So can you see, I kind of went down a rabbit hole, and I was like, I think I have to separate this out, and there's going to be a part 1 class for the beginner part where I'm going to do squares and triangles. We won't be talking about mini motifs for interiors. We won't be talking about circles and hexagons and half circles and half hexagons and offset shaping. We'll just be talking about squares and turning them on the diagonal and using those triangles to smooth out edges and do shaping. So there's going to be a part 1 and a part 2, and I think that you will all love it. And even if you don't understand motifs now, we'll start off slow through the part 1, and then you'll be able to use the skills you learned in the part 1 to apply to part 2. So what I did so far, besides start working on it and writing it and having a ball doing all this, you know how much I love drawing charts and writing books, or handouts are kind of like mini books. So I listed the product for the first class so that you can sign up. It says it's out of stock. Obviously, it's not available yet. But what I've done is set it up so that you can go to that page on my website, and Judy shared a link here in the live chat, and it'll be in the video description today as well. And I thought you might like to get on the wait list so that you'll be notified when it becomes available. Anything I can do to make things easier for you is great. You know, sometimes things get overwhelming. I know I'm not the only crafty person you learn from or that you follow, and I know you have lots of other interests, and you have lots of social media and lots of in-person obligations, and so it's hard to remember everything you want to remember, let alone all the things that stay in your head that you don't want to remember. So anything I can do to make things easier, I like to. So when something's not quite ready yet, I think it makes sense to have a wait list for it so that you can click on it and show your interest, and then you'll be reminded when it becomes available because it was something that you wanted. Otherwise, you'd have to check back all the time, and that's a pain in the butt too, right? Nobody wants to do that. All right, does anybody have any questions about that? I'll wait and see if any, and if do you have any questions about anything else? Today I was going to talk about the edging on the Tranquil Tile shawl and the multiple of the edging, and how to look for edgings that might work for that type of a piece as well. And just like I said, and yesterday I talked about the fact that looking for multiples that fit into a factor of what you're looking for is important for mixing and matching stitch patterns. And this also applies to edgings as well. But today I'm going to tell you the opposite. Thank you, Diane. Yeah, I tried yesterday. I did a new thing with my hair yesterday, and I did it on straight, unprocessed, or not unprocessed, but unstyled hair, so to speak. It was just air dried. And so I decided to do the same thing today, but I put my hair in 2 buns overnight with bobby pins to give myself a little bit of body. And then what I did was I took these 2 front sections right here, put a little ponytail, and then did a topsy tail, you know, where you flip the ponytail into the center of the ponytail and tighten them up. And what it does is it gives you the illusion of like your hair being tucked behind your ears, or it gives you the convenience of your hair being swept off your face, but it's not tucked behind your ears. It's like this fake braid. It's called a topsy tail, and it gives you this nice little texture right there. I probably still didn't do a great job with it, but you know, I had to start somewhere to learn to do 2 braids, and I got to start somewhere to learn this too. So today's only my 2nd day, and it's okay. But thank you, Diane. Thank you. Do I have a knitting class that talks about the different bind-offs? I know I go over a regular bind-off and a lace bind-off in them, and if you look at all of my knitting classes, the outline for the class is listed on the class page so that you can see what's going to be included in that class. But I don't have a class that just specifically goes through, you know, 10 bind-off techniques. I haven't done anything like that yet. What I've been doing so far with the knitting series is doing like an introduction to knitting from the beginning, and adding techniques and tips along the way as we grow our skill set. So we learn the basic stitches in part 1. In part 2, we learn stitch patterns based on the basic stitches and knitting in the round. And then in part 3, we learned how to do super easy color work and shaping by making hats. And so among those 3, we've learned different cast-ons, we've learned different bind-offs, we've learned different troubleshooting and mistake sections. I know some of you who have taken the classes have really enjoyed learning how to fix mistakes. So if anybody wants to share their testimonial here, the troubleshooting sections have been really, really well received in all of the classes so far. And you've learned how to knit straight on straights, how to knit in the round, and how to knit on double points, and how to work back and forth between them, and different ways to cast on and bind off too. But nothing, we didn't do a deep dive into like 10 different or 20 different types of cast on and bind off. I know there's a ton of it out there, but that's not what the focus has been on the classes in the introduction to knitting classes so far. They've more been about learning a skill and applying it to a project. Good for you, Joe. Yay. It's very empowering to fix your own mistakes, isn't it? It sure beats unraveling your whole project and starting over. Kelly, great question. So she wants to make this shawl in fingering weight yarn, and I fully support that idea. This would be amazing in fingering weight yarn. So you're going to have to make one motif and see how big it is before you can, and block it, before you can determine how many you'll need. I mean, you're going from a number 4 worsted Aran weight to a number 1 fingering weight. I used a K hook or 6.5 millimeter. You're probably going to be using a 3 millimeter, 4 millimeter, somewhere in that range. Maybe smaller, maybe bigger. I don't know. You'll have to, and you can let me know if you want. But ultimately, what size hook you use doesn't matter as much as, you know, just figuring out what your personal gauge is with that yarn, that hook, your tension, and specifically the yarn. So once you know what your blocked gauge is on one motif, you'll know how wide it is and know how many you need to make the shawl however wide you want. You may not want your shawl this big. You may want it larger or smaller. But if you're making smaller motifs, which you will absolutely be making smaller motifs if you're using a much smaller yarn, you will need more motifs. So I can't actually tell you if it's going to be 2 more across right now until I know what your gauge is. We did go over this a couple of Tuesdays ago where I talked about different pretend numbers. These motifs are, I think they were 9 or 10 inches wide. Let me double check. I think they're 10 inches wide. Yeah, each motif is 10 inches square. So, and I guesstimated that maybe on a sport weight yarn, maybe you'd get half the size or 5 inches wide. And then it would still depend on how wide do you want it, right? If they're 5 inches wide and you want your shawl 60 inches wide, that would be 12 motifs wide, right? 60 divided by 5 would be 12. But again, it's going to depend on your exact numbers for your blocking measurement and your desired size of shawl. But it's an excellent question. And did I explain it well enough for you and anybody else that might have that question? Because I know this is going to be a popular question. Yes, it was fun to make this cozy and warm in this big size, but this would be so much more elegant and dressy in a thinner yarn with more drape, right? So any of the tencel blends, any of the bamboo blends, any of the cotton blends, any even a baby alpaca or something more luxurious than worsted weight acrylic in a thinner yarn would really make this absolutely stunning, right? You can also add beads to this, or you could add fringe to the bottom. You don't have to do a simple edging like I did. In fact, I talked about this on the first week we talked about this shawl. My original idea was to do a fringe edging on here, one of my chain fringes, not a cut fringe, because I find cut fringe to be way too hard to maintain. And we can talk about that if anybody has any questions about it. So, but it's fine to make something if you have no intention of doing anything with it, right? Like, I have no problem putting fringe on a mandala. It's going to get dusted. It's not actually going to go in the washing machine. It's on a metal frame, right? It's not going to go in the wash. It's going to be spot cleaned and dusted because it sits on the wall. But when we make things to wear, they get dirty. They get dirty from the oil in our skin, the dust in the environment, food that we eat. whatever, they get dirty. Anytime we wear stuff, if we wear clothes, we wash them. So I don't think it's practical to put cut fringe. There are exceptions. Depends on how you want to wash it. And that's why I wanted to talk about it. In general, it is harder to wash something and maintain something that has cut fringe on it. However, the thinner the yarn, the less likely it is to fray. And depending on how you plan on washing it, you can preserve fringe if you want to. I would never, ever, 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 ever in a million years recommend throwing a fringed shawl in the washing machine and just letting it go. When it comes out, you're going to have knots, and they may or may not ever come out. However, hand washing is fine. Laundry bags can be your best friend when it comes to things with fringe on them. You can even hand wash in a laundry bag if you want to be super duper gentle with it. But you could do, you could put your shawl with cut fringe in a laundry bag and put it on the delicate cycle in the washing machine, or you could put it in the laundry bag and hand wash it in the sink. But I would recommend using the laundry bag even in the sink, because the less you agitate that fringe, the more likely it is to be preserved in an untangled state. I would never throw it in the dryer. You always want to lay it flat to dry, and you can just comb out the fringe with your fingers like that, right? So that can be done as well. But in general, if you're giving it as a gift and you're not sure how someone wants to or will take care of something, I think it is much more practical to put a chain fringe on something than a cut fringe. Does that answer the question about that though? And then there were two reasons why I didn't end up putting cut fringe on here, or putting chain fringe on here. Number one, I thought it was going to make it much bigger, and it's already a rather large shawl. And number two, I wanted this to be a one ball project, and you know how big this ball of yarn was, 765 yards or something like that. I was going to run out of yarn if about halfway through the fringe on the edging row. And you know how I feel about that. I feel a huge responsibility, and I have since my design career began. I don't like to dip into a second ball of yarn for a small amount. I think it's as a designer, I find it to be irresponsible. I worry about the value of other people's money, same as my own. And if it's something that I wouldn't want a designer to do to me, I'm sure as heck not going to do it to anybody else either. So if it meant dipping into 20 or 30 or 40 yards of another 765 ball yarn, no, I wasn't going to do that. So I unraveled the chain and figured out a different edging, and that's what I wanted to talk to you about today, because you have so many choices when it comes to edging on a shawl. Number one, you can use an edging book like Crochet Power 2 Edgings, where I have 100 edgings for you to choose from. And here's an opportunity to talk about the value of the way that book is formatted. The book is formatted by construction style, number one, so you can choose whether you want to do a bottom-up construction, a top-down construction, a side-to-side construction, or whatever. And then it shows you the multiple, like the side-to-side perpendicular construction. That one doesn't matter what the multiple is, because you're doing one multiple of the pattern and you're working sideways and joining as you go. Now that would have taken more yarn for me to do on this one, so I didn't even consider that category, that construction style, on this particular shawl, because I knew it was going to use a lot of yarn and I was running out of yarn at that point. Unlimited yarn or lots of yarn, perpendicular construction would have been super fun to do and easy to do on here. The bottom-up construction really didn't make sense for this shawl, because I would have had to do the edging separately and then join it to the V as I go, after the fact, and that's really complicated. Bottom-up construction is really convenient when you start with the edging and then do a decreased top-up construction shawl. Then it's super easy and you're doing it seamlessly. Because the shawl was done in motifs, I would have had to do the edging separately and then sew it or join it after the fact. And I felt like not only was that going to involve more math, it was going to be complicated, and I knew it would be a more advanced technique for my customers and people that wanted to make it than necessary. So it really did boil down to top-down construction being the easiest to do, because I thought if I just did a solid row of double crochet along the edges of the motifs to create a smooth edge, it was going to help me quite a bit. It was going to help me smooth things out quite a bit, give me a stitch count so that I knew what kind of a multiple I could use, okay? And I forget what the multiple is. I think it's like it could be a 6 plus 3, a multiple of 6 plus 3. Let me see if I can look at it real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a multiple of 5 plus 3, okay? So that worked out great for me. However, here's where I'm going to tell you that it's okay to break rules. And we talk about this sometimes, right? Isn't it Picasso that once said that? And we love that quote, don't we? You know, it's an artist needs to learn the rules so he knows how to break them. And it applies to a lot of parts of life, but you have to know the rules before you can effectively break them for good reasons. And so when we talk about stitch multiples, we talk about the multiple and the plus, if it's there, if it's not, to make things work out evenly, okay? Now when you're working a stitch, when you're adding a stitch pattern to an existing stitch count of stitches, the more stitches you have, the more multiples you have, the easier it is to fudge a number or two to make the math work. And I want to pause for a second to see if that even remotely makes sense or not first, and then I'll explain it. If you have a small project, adding 1 or 2 stitches ends up being a bigger portion of the full stitch count, and it can really affect your ruffling or your flatness. But Christine Ashley, she'll have to buy one because this beginner seems very far off to making that. Very far off to making what? Have you watched the videos on how to make this shawl? It's really just 2 motifs. You make the triangles first, and then we make the square and join it to the triangles as you go. If you watch these videos and look at them side by side with the pattern, I do believe you could figure that out very easily. Oh, this is a good, oh, this might be good for my example here. Okay. Good, a lot of people are getting it. So if you had to fudge and add 5 stitches or fudge and decrease 5 stitches along this V, it would be a bigger portion of the stitch count or a bigger percentage increase than it would be on something a little bit bigger, and even more and more significant than on something much bigger. So let's say that my stitch pattern is a multiple of 5 plus 3, and the number of stitches on that last double crochet row didn't work out evenly. Let's say it's off by 1 or 2 stitches or even 3. You can fudge that so easily, and there's 2 ways you can do that. One, and I talk about this quite a bit in the front matter of Crochet Power Edgings if you're interested in buying that book. I talk about different ways of adding stitches specifically for corners, but this applies to an all over edge as well. As long as you have a lot of stitches and you only have a few stitches to increase or decrease, the percentage or the ratio of number you're increasing and decreasing to the full number of stitches, if it's really different, it won't make a big difference. Like if you had to do a bunch of decreases, you're going to pucker your fabric. If you had to do a lot of increases, you're going to ruffle your fabric. But if you've already got hundreds of stitches and you're only adding 2 or 3, you're never going to know the difference. So it's not difficult to fudge your numbers along that smoothing out double crochet row, that even stitch row before you start the edging. The other way you can do this is, like for example, on this particular stitch pattern, the first row, let me say it correctly since it's right here, on the first row of, after that double crochet row, the repeat is chain 7, skip 4 stitches, single crochet in the next. Well, when you're getting to, if you want to evenly space out increases or decreases, you could skip a different number of stitches when you do the chain 7 skip 4. If you needed to add a stitch, you could do a chain 7 skip 3, right, to give yourself a little more wiggle room. And if you wanted to give yourself a little less wiggle room, I might be saying this backwards now. Yeah, you could skip 1 more stitch to eat up stitches so that you have less stitches, and you could skip less stitches if you wanted to spread it out and make it more. So you could go in either direction to make things work. And if you need a couple of extra stitches, then you could do that evenly spaced across, or if you just need to do it at the beginning or the end to clean things up, you can do that as well. Does that make sense? Yeah, if you want to change things in a pattern, oftentimes it does involve some math. That is true. And if you're not excited about the math, that's okay. That's why having a pattern is valuable too, right? And that's why I write patterns specifically with all the math being worked out in advance so that you don't have to do this. If you want something exactly the way I've written it, you don't have to think about math at all, okay? However, if you want to veer away from a pattern, sometimes you need to know a little bit of math, and that's why I'm happy to share that with you, because it is fun to veer off from a pattern. A pattern is the foundation, and what you do with it makes it your own. Whether you change the weight of the yarn, you add beads, you change the color, you change the fiber content, you change the size, you change the types of coloring. You could do block coloring like this. You could do multicoloring between the motifs like this, or add beads, or add something else, or even decide to embellish it with a different type of an edging. You could also make a corset tie, make a long crochet chain, add little tassels on the end, and when you put this on, you could turn it into a cape by having some sort of a closure there too. So you could do that as well. Oh, that reminds me. Today I'm wearing the other $14 dress that I mentioned yesterday. Remember I said I found two? Yesterday I wore the one that had short sleeves, and this one is a tank top version, and it has a slightly different waist too. Can you see how this one is more of a gathered waist? The other one just had like an elastic. It was smooth. It didn't have this much gathering in here, and it was just slightly different. I was afraid this one was not going to be attractive on. I thought it was going to make my belly look bigger than it even is, but I'm actually quite happy with it, and I do plan on usually wearing it with a layer over, whether it's a jean vest, a jean jacket, or a blouse. So it means that waistband is even less important to me, but when it's hot out this summer, I know I'll still wear it without anything over the top as well. But for $14, and it's a nice ankle length maxi dress. No side slits, by the way, but the skirt is so full that I don't think it made a big deal. There are some other colors it comes in. I just was really drawn to the black because I love the way it looks with denim. And I love pairing black maxi dresses with denim layers. Actually, they look good with shawls. They look good with bright colored shawls and vests and things like that too. This is a size large that I bought, and it is just the most comfortable, cozy, cute dress, and I can't believe it's only $14. So anyway, there, I said it. You know, sometimes I like side slits, sometimes I don't, and I really love that these don't have side slits. So yeah. Oh, we know didn't I get in trouble here on YouTube once for wearing a side slit maxi dress at the beach? So stupid. Okay, you want to make the shawl in a number 3 yarn, but don't know how much extra yardage I would need. Well, I've got you covered there too, Wendy. If you go to the pattern, I believe, don't I have I don't have the thing on there. Huh, okay. Well, I do have a chart. It's in a lot of my books. It's just not in that pattern. What I can do is put it on that pattern page though. Let's, what's it called? Tranquil Tiles. I could even update the pattern to add the chart into it because I absolutely love this chart that I created. It's in the front matter of a bunch of my books, and in it I tell you an estimated yardage for different types of projects with different weights of yarn. Don't know where I could send you right this second to look at it, but do you have any of my books? Do you have either Crochet Power 1 or Crochet Power 2? I'll wait and see if you answer that, because it is, that chart is there. And I can look it up real quick also. Should be in here. let me, I know it's here somewhere. I can't remember where it is. Oh, I can just look it up on my computer. Give me 1 second here. Okay, I'm gonna make this full screen. So this chart is on my website. If you go to the Yarn 101 page on my website, it's listed there. I could link that as well. So here I have a yarn estimate guide for different weights of yarn and different projects. So it shows you number 1 fingering, number 2 sport, number 3 DK, number 4 worsted, and number 5 bulky. And then it gives you a yardage range estimate for hat, scarf, shawl, adult sweater, and Afghan. So you said a number 3 DK weight shawl states a range of 700 to 900 yards to do an average sized shawl. But let me find that page on my website so I can send you there. Here we go. I have a lot of great charts on this page, including what weight you get when you double yarns, what yarn terminology is from country to country in case you like to shop in other places. Let's see, let me get that link to you. Here we go. So if you go to that page, you can see that chart there. And I will add it to the Tranquil Tiles pattern and upload it back to the page on the product on my website today. And what that means, just like with the mystery crochet along, you know how each week the pattern was updated and you just had to go to your account to download the new update. If you've already ordered the pattern, when I place the update in there today, I'll do it right after the show. If you go to your account and go to the pattern, you can download the new version, which will have that chart in there, because I do believe that this shawl is a good candidate for wanting to do it in a different weight of yarn. So if you need to know, I give you the yardage estimate for making it in this weight yarn. I also share what I used, but then I will share that chart so that you can get an estimate for how much yarn you would need to make it in different weights of yarn. I would consider this a larger than average shawl. Let me go back and read the size. It's 76 inches wide by 38 inches long. I don't think that it's humongous, but it is definitely on the larger size. You know, shawls some start with a shawlette size, which can be like 50 inches wide. An average, I think, is between 60 is even still small. 72 is a little, depends on how big you are and how much coverage you want to, though. I like a shawl that is like 72 inches wide, but 60 inches is wide too for something that's smaller and just like covers your shoulders. So it depends on what you like, but in general, I would consider this towards the higher end of that range. But the other thing to consider when you're picking a number within a range like that, the lower range is going to be something for a very loose gauge, and the higher number in the range is going to be something with texture and more stitches. So this stitch pattern has some cluster stitches in it, and I didn't do it super lacy, so even though it's not like all post stitches or anything, I would still consider it on the higher end of there. And just like we've talked about a million times before, it's always better to order a little more yarn than a little less, right? So I would always go to, in fact, if I'm making a shawl, I would even consider shooting for around 1,000 yards just to be safe. You may choose to do a different type of edging. Your gauge may be a lot different than mine. You know, there's a lot of things to consider. But yeah, I would consider looking at the larger side, the higher end of that, and then even maybe adding to it. So would we say it was 700 to 900? I would consider thinking about 1,000 yards myself. But that's I like to play it safe when it comes to yardage in a project. I can't stand running out of yarn. It is not fun to me at all, and we all know that when you do run out of yarn, there's a lot of different variables that can make it a complete mess, right? But that's a great question, Wendy. I'm glad you shared it with me. Does anybody else have any questions? You're welcome, Marcia. Hi, Linda. All right, Wendy has yarn already in her stash. She can start today then. How exciting. We all like to start immediately, don't we? Does anybody have any other questions? Those were great questions today. Great, great example, Lori. Yes, what if you want to make a corset tie to go with it? What if you want to make a hat to match? What if you want to make a bag to match? There's never a wrong reason to have a little extra yarn. It never hurts to have a little bit more. Maybe you want to coordinate something else. Maybe you want to add a second piece to the collection. Yes, especially since we're constantly talking about ways to reuse a pattern. And you could absolutely make a matching bag or a matching hat for this shawl with, or a matching cowl. You could make a whole bunch of different matching things. So having a little extra yarn would not hurt at all. Or maybe you'd like to make an edging that's a little more elaborate, or make it a little bit bigger. There's a lot of reasons. And when you buy a little more yarn, sometimes you end up reaching a different level of a discount, whether it's a bulk discount program or reaching a certain number amount to get free shipping. I don't know. To me, it never hurts to buy a little extra. Never. And then even if you have extra, it's good for swatching, right? Having a little extra yarn on hand for practicing new techniques or swatching. And then ultimately you can always end up doing a stash buster if it really drives you nuts to have extra yarn. But then there's an extra project that you didn't have to buy yarn for either. Yes, yarn enabler over here, yarn buying enabler over here. I have this thought in my head that in one of my yarn purchases in the last couple months, I bought a 10-pack of yarn in black, and I want to find it because I'd really like to make a black sundress right now. I don't know why. I have nowhere to wear a black dress, but for some reason, I want to make one right now. I would love to make one in white too, but that's just something else. Steffi just started a scrappy blanket. Wonderful. Yeah, it's so fun to use up your scraps. And we can talk about, oh, I have something, you want to see something else that I'm working on? So you know how much I love plants, and I really don't think it's practical to have plants here in the RV, and I'm always worried about what plants are toxic for Bjorn because he loves to eat plants. So I decided I'm going to crochet some plants for in here, and I'm truly going to use my own plants and my own plant stories or loves in what I'm designing. So I'm using different stitch patterns. This one's going to be like a Christmas cactus, and then I thought I'd do one like my family's spider plant, and then maybe a couple other types of plants, some with flowers, some without, and I'm going to make them so that they can hang in little planters and make them tiny so that they can hang from even 3M hooks, which will be great for college students, for anybody that lives in small spaces, great for last minute gifts, all sorts of things. Do you like this idea? Would you like to make some crochet plants with me? Isn't that going to be fun? Yeah, so I started this one. This one's going to be more like a Christmas cactus, I think. Yeah, a plumeria flower would be great. Plumeria tree I would involve a lot of extra pieces. I'd have to do like some wire and stuff. I want simple plants that do this and can hang. So I'm thinking like spider plants, Christmas cactus, and that kind of plant to start with. But yeah, I think it's going to be fun. And it'll be so cute. I can have one hanging right in front of my kitchen window, and I can have one hanging right here, maybe in my bedroom. And then Bjorn won't be tempted to eat them, and he won't get sick from eating them, and I'll get some greenery and maybe some flowers in here. So I'm excited too. Okay, I see a few yeses. Good, good. I'm glad you're excited too. And does anybody have any other questions? All right, while I'm waiting for the last few questions, just a couple of reminders. Don't forget about the book sale going on. And if you want autographed or personalized copies of my books for yourself or for a gift, get them before they're gone. This is the last time I'm going to house inventory for books now. It doesn't mean, who knows what the future holds, but for right now in my upcoming future, I will not be housing inventory for books in my current lifestyle right now. I will only sell the physical books exclusively on Amazon. So when these are gone, they will not be coming back to my website in this state. They'll just stay as ebooks going forward. So if you want them, now is the time to get them. Bulk discounts up to 40% off. What else? Oh, tomorrow is Patreon live stream behind the scenes. So if you're level 2 or higher or want to join, I'll be going behind the scenes tomorrow and talking about things, exciting things for me that you might be excited about too. Because you know I share everything, right? Eventually I share everything. I just, after everything I've been through this year, I just can't expose something that's special to me right now with the general public. I just can't. It's been too much, and I'll explain why and how and the whole 9 yards tomorrow. You're welcome, Wendy. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to help and empower and to help you on your creative journey. That makes me so happy. Hi, Erica. Is Picasso with you today? Hi, Picasso. Erica has a parrot that likes to watch the show. All right, I don't see any other questions. Hi, Picasso. It's 10 o'clock tomorrow, and the link has already been sent to you in your messages if you're level 2, level 3, or level 4. It'll be at 10 o'clock tomorrow. All right. And I'm trying to work on my schedule right now and getting more lives and more videos going. I've had some scheduling challenges lately, and but I'll probably have a better schedule to share with you coming soon as well. Working on that, working on so much, but so much good stuff, right? All right, I don't see any other questions, so thank you all so much for taking time out of your busy day to spend a few minutes here with me. I hope you enjoyed my show and tell, chatting with me and everyone else. I hope you enjoyed all the amazing questions we got today and the fact that I got to answer them and had answers and was able to add that to the lessons today. So wonderful. You guys make the show. The show would not exist without you. So thank you so much. Let us make time to create, share, and inspire today and every day. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.